Once you have all of the coat hanger dipoles and wires attached, this is what you should have. And as you can see, it's better illustrated here where you can actually see it. There's the cross, and there in the middle, they're not crossed. So the next step once you have this completed is to try your best to align all of the coat hanger parts so that they're relatively even. You don't have to be exact about it, but try and get like the tips, you can see here, try and get those to be evenly spaced somewhat, trying to get the angles of the V in each coat hanger about the same, and also pick it up and hold it close to your eye like that, and try to get the vertical level of each of them aligned so that they're relatively flat. So like if you were to turn it upside down and lay it on the floor, they would all be touching equally. You just want them to be relatively equal distance. Once you've finished aligning all of the dipoles, the next step is to attach your transformer so that you can then hook up some coax cable to run it to your TV. That's what allows you to connect this antenna to something. Now, to do that, I'm going to be using these little splice connectors here. And I'll show you the package. That's what they look like. That's what they come in. You can use whatever method you want. If you wanted to, you could just cut some of the insulation off and solder that right on, or whatever you want to do. But you want to try and get it connected in the center so that it's even distance between all of the bottom and top half of the unit. So the way that these work is you just line up one of the wires just like this, close the cover, and then you get some pliers and mash it together good. And it will attach just like that. And that cuts into the wire and makes a connection, and then on the second half here, I'm going to cut off the little legs coming off of this transformer, and then attach that to the other side. So this is what it should look like once you have your transformer connected. Those are the two splice connectors right there. And there is the entire antenna portion. So once you are to this point, you actually have a functioning antenna. You could just stand this thing up and plug it into the antenna in on your TV with some coax cable and it would work. However, it's a good thing to make antennas like this directional, because that means that they're filtering out a little bit of the noise coming from other directions, and it also beefs up how strong it receives the signal from the direction they're pointing. And to do that, it's very, very easy. You just put a reflector on the back. And when we say reflector, it's not like a mirror, like reflecting visible light. We're talking about a mirror that reflects radio waves, which is another form of light. Just our eyes can't see it. So it's actually very, very simple to do that. You can just use aluminum foil, and it works really well. However, it does kind of stand out like a sore thumb, because you have this big wide patch of aluminum foil on the back of here, so it's kind of gaudy. And to remedy that, what I used in the last couple that I built was just chicken wire. And I know it's kind of hard to see. It was actually in the beginning of the video when I was talking about all the supplies being used, but it disappears into our carpet here so well that I didn't even mention it. So this is what I'm going to use to build the reflector on the back. Once you have a chunk of chicken wire cut out, you can lay it down right underneath of the antenna that you've got built so far. And what you're looking for here is just a little bit of of overlap, I guess you'd say. You want the ends of the reflector to be maybe an inch further out than the ends of the antenna dipoles here, and at least an inch over the top and an inch over the bottom. So I'm just going to use the snip portion of these pliers and cut all of that down to size, and then I will attach it. Now this is just a real quick extra step that I like to do. You're left with these nice sharp ends where you cut the chicken wire. I just like to twist them so they're aimed inside so they don't catch on everything or poke you nearly as often, stuff like that. Just a little bit of a safeguard from getting holes in yourself. There we go. Okay. So, once you're done bending all of the ends in, if you decide to do that step, the next thing you need to do is to try bending the entire piece of chicken wire to get it as flat as possible. It does not have to be perfect, but take a little bit of time and try and get it to lay as close to flat as you can. Once you're done with that step, you could just go right on ahead and attach this onto the back of the antenna, and that would work as a reflector. I'm going to go a step further this time, because I've built a couple of these before, and I'm going to try to keep it a little straighter. And so what I'm going to use, this is 3/16 inch round rod here that I got at just a Home Depot. It's 4 feet long. I'm going to cut it to 16-inch lengths and thread the chicken wire through this rod and then attach that whole assembly to the back of the antenna, and I'm hoping that that's going to keep it a little bit more straight. So here's our 16 inches mark right there, and I'm just going to use bolt cutters for this. You could use a hacksaw, but since this is pretty thin, bolt cutters should be fine. There we go. Okay, as you can see, I flipped the antenna upside down now, and what I did here was bored out some holes at 3/16 of an inch, which is the same diameter as these rods that I got, and it's just inset a little bit into the surface, so it's not like a hole, it's just like a notch. And I'm setting the rods right into that notch, like so. And then I'm going to be setting, I'm doing this one-handed, but I'm going to be setting the chicken wire right down on top of that. And then this was an idea I just had, because I'm kind of going with it here, just improvising. But I'm going to use some paint stirrer sticks to hold this on there. I'm going to pre-drill through it and then use a screw and a washer on the back to hold that all down. Okay, so I've got all of those paint stir sticks attached to the back, and that seems to be holding down the chicken wire quite nicely. The only thing that I don't like about this setup, having now done it, is that the rods are still pretty loose in there. This bottom one especially is really bad. So what I think I'm going to do is throw some Gorilla Glue in there, and that Gorilla Glue actually expands a little bit before it hardens, so that should fill some of that in. Hold them on there better, and I'm also going to use some of these zip ties and actually tie the rods onto the chicken wire, 2 per side, and that should actually flatten the chicken wire out even more, as well as help to hold the rods in place. So once you have the rods glued into place and the zip ties attaching the rods to the chicken wire, the last thing left to do is to add a base. Now I just did this off camera here because it was very awkward and I was flipping it all over the place, and there's no way I ever would have gotten it on camera, but all I did was attach a little sheet of 1x right onto the bottom with 2 slightly longer screws. So lastly, I'll give you a little bit of an idea of how big this is. Remember, this is a 4-bay. A 2-bay would be half this tall, and an 8-bay would be twice this wide but the same height. And this should be able to pull in quite a lot more than just a standard pair of rabbit ears. Now, if you live in the city, there's really no reason to build this unless you have really, really poor reception. But if you're out in the country and you only get maybe 1 or 2 channels, this thing should be able to bring you quite a bit more, and even the ones that you do get now should be much higher signal levels. So I hope you guys enjoy this project, and I hope it works for you. So take care and have fun.